can a conservative from a bright red state build consensus in these divided times? Let's find out. He joins us now from Oklahoma City, the state capital. Governor, thanks for being with us. You've had the gig for just a little bit more than 4 months, and it's a fraught time for relations between the states and between the states and the federal government. You say you want your fellow governors to, quote, step out of partisan corners and into a shared vision. But I am looking at the blue states and the red states, Governor, and I am not seeing a lot of vision sharing going on. What's the idea here?
Well, first off, I really think there's more than you would think. When you get two governors from a red state and a blue state together, we actually get along and we like each other, and we're focused on doing best for our states. Like, I know you had Matt Myers on from Delaware, and he's a good friend, and sometimes we might disagree about policy, but we don't hate each other. And I think that's important for the American people to see, that, you know, governors have a unique perspective, that we're trying to, you know, make sure that we have the best education system, the best infrastructure, health care. We want the best economy for our citizens, best affordability. And so we might disagree how to some of the policy pieces, but yet we can demonstrate that the best ideas come from the states, and that 50 laboratories of democracy are what our founders envision. Instead of a strong federal government where it's a one-size-fits-all, it just doesn't work. And so we need to put the power back in the states, and I think we're going to be better off. And then let the people choose where the best economy is and where the best policies are, and that whether that's in Texas or Oklahoma or Florida or New York or California. And we're closer to the people. And James Madison talked about that in the Federalist Papers. And we just need to get back to that idea that states are closer to the people. And I think when we do that, we can demonstrate to Americans that we are all Americans. We can get along.
Well, you rang my dinner bell there with James Madison, and we were going to talk about that. But I want to talk about a practical political consideration. So you have to build trust with Democrats, and you're trying to do that. But it also sometimes means pushing your fellow Republicans out of their comfort zones and away from the party lines sometimes. The Trump administration is taking a pretty heavy hand with the states. National Guard deployments, overriding state regulations on things like artificial intelligence, even telling states how to draw congressional maps. Now, I look at you, I see somebody who's trying to walk the line. For example, you're sending troops from your National Guard to Washington after the murder of a West Virginia Guardswoman, but you're not sending them to other cities where governors are resisting the president's demands. You have taken some heat from your own side. Talk about how you're approaching these kinds of challenges when it's red and red.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, here's the deal. I mean, we support Oklahoma. All 77 counties went for President Trump, and he's got such a tough job to try to protect these cities that are out of control. Some of these blue cities are just, quite frankly, they're out of control. The crime is unbelievable. So Trump's got a tough job. My point to taking a different stance from kind of the Republican talking points on that was, if the shoe was on the other foot, there's no way that a President Biden administration sending California or New York troops into Oklahoma, we would lose our minds. So I'm not going to pit one governor against another, right? So the president has the right to federalize our troops from Oklahoma and send them wherever he wants, or federalize them from Maryland and send them wherever he wants. But I just did not think it was right for one state to send troops to another over the protests of that governor, because that's a dangerous precedent in my opinion. Because the president of the United States can enforce that. He can send troops wherever he wants. There's posse comitatus, obviously, where he can't. We're not going to be policing cities, but they can be there for protection. The federal troops in sending troops to Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C. is totally different. It is a federal enclave. So when the president asked for troops to go there, it was a no-brainer. I always call volunteers, so we have sent 161 volunteers to Washington, D.C. on a 90-day mission because, quite frankly, under the Biden administration, Washington was not safe, and now Trump has that safe. And then you see that attack on that West Virginia National Guard, that was just unbelievable. So we want to support that. We're a law and order party, and we're going to continue that. And I think most Democrats want to protect their cities as well. They just might have I don't know. You'll have to ask them. But there's just a few Democrat governors that are just so against Trump, they're probably running for president, and so they just want to be yinging when he's yanging, and so it makes no sense, and that's why they're losing this. They're losing because American people see right through it.
Yinging when he's yanging. I'm going to steal that, Governor. Okay, now let's get into laboratories of democracy. So this is, as you say, this is states are competing against each other. And that's important, but it's horizontal federalism. Mr. Madison's system that you talked about also requires vertical federalism in which the states are competing with the federal government for power. It's not enough to divide power between the branches in Washington for the system to work. So what do we do, and you allude to this a little bit with the Democrats, what do we do about the fair weather federalists who only stand up for states' rights when the other party is in power?
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I watched your show with the governor of Delaware, and you asked me that question that the Democrat governors obviously are all about federalism when the Republican is in the White House, and then they switch when it's the other shoes on the other foot. And I think that's what I think is really important point that you made there, because we can't have a system that we swing from one pendulum to another based on who's in the White House. And I'll give you an example. You know, when Obama's in the White House, they're killing the Keystone Pipeline, and then Trump comes in and we reinstate it, and then Biden comes back and they kill it again. And finally, the investors and the companies are saying, no more. We're tired of being pulled on this chain and having to invest all these resources to get permits done and get things done. We can't weaponize the justice system. We see people attacking President Trump's businesses and raiding Mar-a-Lago when he's out of office, when a different party's in. And then we can't be a country that swings so far from one pendulum to another, especially on the business side, on the justice side. And I think that's what's frustrating most Americans at this point, that we need to get government out of our lives, let businesses go compete. That's a free market principle. That's why, as the chairman of the National Governors Association, I'm focused on reigniting the American dream. And this idea that it doesn't matter who your parents are, whether you're rich or poor, through the greatness of America and through an education and our free markets, you can go accomplish your dreams. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. That is a bipartisan method, and that's why that's my initiative this year. It coincides with our 250th anniversary of our country, and just really excited to kind of promote that all across the country, this American dream idea.
Okay. Right where you are sitting right now, under you is a lot of natural gas and a lot of natural gas pipelines that are taking Oklahoma natural gas all over the country, right? Americans need Oklahoma. But you are trying to bring more businesses into Oklahoma to take advantage of all of the energy that Oklahoma has. You struck a $9 billion AI deal with Google, and this makes a lot of sense in an energy state like yours because the AI disruption is hitting the grid, right? These companies want to go where there's a lot of energy. But and I definitely see the merits there, but how do you think about the other disruption and the disruption in the labor market, especially for younger people, for folks in entry-level jobs or who are in college now and want to get into those entry-level jobs that may get wiped out? How are you yinning and yanging on that question?
Yeah, well, I talk about, economic development is really about the 3 Ps, and that's power, permitting, and people. And so those are the 3 things I focus on. I mean, Oklahoma has the power, and you see Google investing $9 billion. Our electricity costs here are cheaper than any other state. And that means we're cheaper than anywhere in the world. I think we're a third of what they're paying in California because we have a free market system. So we can talk about that. But part of that is because we have our permitting rules in line and we can get projects done quickly. That's what companies want. They don't want all the red tape. They don't want all the, our pipeline companies tell me this. This is amazing. Americans need to know this. It costs twice as much to permit a project as it does to actually build it. So think about that. You build your dream home. You save your whole life. You're building a $500,000 house, and it costs you $1 million for the permitting of that house. That's what's happening right now just because of the craziness of the federal government and the permitting problems. So we got to fix that. But this idea of people and labor, and to your point, I believe it comes back to apprenticeships. It comes back to getting kids in the workforce earlier, using high school not only to get them ready for maybe college, but what about all the kids that don't want to go to college? They want to go into the workforce. That's why I took a trip to Switzerland and studied Germany and Switzerland's education model, because they think that workforce education is education. And so that's what we're focused on in Oklahoma is let's get kids more aligned, actually working and showing up on time, saying yes, sir, no, sir, having to punch a clock, so to speak, get an entry-level job, learn a skill. And I think that's going to be transformative for our country if we get out of this idea that the way we've been doing has been working. And bringing AI and technology into learning also is super important and something we're focused on.
Huh. See, you surprised me. Okay, America, if you were from Hoot Owl, Oklahoma, you would know him already. Wouldn't it be fun to be from Hoot Owl, Oklahoma? But if you don't, there he is, Governor Kevin Stitt. We thank you for your time.